Hi class. So in this video I am going to show you how in 13.5 to solve for a second triangle. And the only time you will need to solve for a second triangle is when you're given the side-side angle case. Let's get our triangle set up like we normally would. So I'm given the fact that angle C is 122 degrees. Remember, your angle and sides are across from each other, so if angle C is there, side C is here. Let's say angle CA is there, so side A is here, and then, oh, I did know side C, it's 18. Perfect. Alright, looking at this triangle, I have a side angle pair right here, and then I know side A. So the first thing I want to do is solve for angle A. Here's my setup for that. I'm going to have sine, I'm going to do my angle C, sine of 122 over 18 equals sine of A over side A, which is 12. And now the reason you end up with two possible cases is because when I solve for sine of an angle, there are two possible answers. I'm going to say more about that in just a little bit. Like I normally would, I am going to cross multiply. So I'm going to do 12 times sine of 120. So I'm going to do 12 times sine of 122. And I get 10.176. By the way, if you want me to write it all out, I'll do it the first time here. So I get 12 times sine of 122 equals 18 times sine of A. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 18. So in my calculator, I already have 12 times sine of 122 typed up. Now I just needed to divide by 18. And I get 0.565. Making sure, let me just pause and make sure I am in degree mode. Because I gave me the angle in degrees, I am in degree mode, so I'm good to go. Now, to solve for a decimal like that, I need to take the sine inverse of both sides. That's how I can get rid of the sine so that I'm just left with angle A. What I recommend, in sine inverse again is right above the sine button, I recommend you use the ANS button. So you don't want to round it and you don't want to have to retype the whole thing. So if I use this answer key button down here, it will load up what was on the previous line of my calculator. And I end up getting 34.4 degrees. Alright, so that is my potential angle for angle A. And there could be a second angle. So let me just pause and explain something really quick. You might remember from our unit circle that in quadrants 1 and quadrant 2, sine is positive. Now, if I have, and this goes from 0 to 180 degrees, which are my possible angle values. If I have 34.4 right here, I don't know if it's actually 34.4, or I'm talking about this 34.4, which would be this distance of 180 minus 34.4, 180 minus 34.4, or 145.6. Here's the deal. If I look at my calculator, sine of 34.4 is the same thing as sine of 145.6. See that? So I don't know if this angle I got is well, we know that that one's going to work, but maybe sine of 145.6 also works. So it could be, for my second triangle, it could also be 145.6. We'll come back to that in just a second. Let's go back and let's finish solving this triangle. So right now all I've done is I've solved for angle A. Based off of that, let's solve for angle B. Solving for angle B is always the easy part, right? All I gotta do, or the third angle, not always angle B, but I'm just gonna subtract from 180 because my three angles in a triangle add to 180. So I'm gonna subtract off 34.4 and I'm gonna subtract off the 122 that I got. 180 subtract 34.4, subtract 122. And I get 23.6. So angle B is 23.6 degrees. I am almost done, but I need to find my side B. Now that I know angle B, let's take my original given angle and side, and I'm going to use sine of 23.6 divided by side B and solve for side B. And now here's me hoping that you are getting the hang of this proportion stuff. So hopefully you know I'm going to do 18 times sine of 23.6, and then I'm going to divide by sine of 122, and I get for side B approximately 8.5. Now, all of those worked out. I did not get any undefined answers when I was trying to find these in my calculator, which means that triangle definitely works. Now, if you're going along and if in the first triangle you get something undefined, that means there's 0 triangles. So now let's search to see if a second triangle exists. I know that one exists. I already talked about this, how sine of 34.4 and the reference angle 34.4 or 145.6 have the same value. Could this actually be an angle and have a second triangle here? Well, here's how I test it. I know for sure that angle C is 122 because that was given to me. Now, if these two are true, what would angle B be? And again, to find my third angle, I just subtract from 180, and I get negative 87.6 degrees, which is not possible. So there is no second triangle, only one triangle, and the answers are right there. Let me tell you, this takes a while to get the hang of. So I'm going to do 3 examples, or 2 more examples, I guess, before I have you try one on your own. Let's look at example B next. All right, I'm going to set myself up here. I've got side-side angle again. Angle B is 33 degrees. Side B is 14. Side A is 23. And that's all I got. All right, so this time the B is my side angle pair. So I'm going to start off by finding my first angle, and I know that side A is 23, so I have to find angle A first this time again. So here's my setup. Remember, cross multiply. So I'm going to type into my calculator 23 times sine of 33, and then I'm going to divide by 14. So 0.895 approximately equals sine of my angle. Sine inverse both sides. Sine inverse my angle. So angle A is potentially 63.5. Actually, because I did not get an error message, that is my angle A. So let's find my third angle. I'm going to find angle C by doing 180 subtract my angles that I know, because the 3 angles in a triangle add to 180. 180 subtract 33, subtract 63.5 is 83.5. Whoa. So angle C equals 83.5 degrees approximately. And once I found that, I can find side C. I'm still going to use the sine of 33 over 14 because that was the one that was given to me. But now I'm going to use my sine of 83.5 and find side C. And again, I'm going to do it in my calculator. So when you're doing this in your homework as well, it's required to show your setup. And then after that, I expect you will use your calculator. 14 times sine of 83.5 divided by sine of 33. Side C here is 25.5. Okay, so the first one, solve like normal. Now I need to search for the second triangle. And again, the thing is, in quadrants 1 and 2, and I go off of the first angle I found, which was angle A. This angle right here is 63.5. This angle here is also 63.5, the reference angle. So what angle gives me a reference angle of 63.5? Now here's the confusing part. 3 angles in a triangle add to 180, but a straight line also adds to 180. So I'm going to take 180, subtract my 63.5. But this time the reason I'm doing that is because this angle I'm getting 116.5 plus 63.5 form a straight line. So that's why I can do that for this one. All right. Is that a viable angle is my next question. Here's how I test it again. Use the one you were given. So the thing is, because I was given that B is 33 degrees, I know that one for sure is true. The thing is, can I find angle C then if I'm given this stuff? 180 subtract 116.5 subtract 33 is 30.5. Okay, so if you can find the third angle, then it is a yes. It is a yes, the second triangle exists. And the thing is, if this angle is different, this side is now going to be different. So this setup right here, I am going to do exactly the same to start off with, because sine of 33 and 14 was still just given to me from the beginning, but now angle C is 30.5 instead of 83.5, see? So that part's different, and so I'm going to get a different answer for C. I am going to cross multiply here. 14 times sine of 30.5 divided by sine of 33, and I end up with C is approximately 13.0. So there's my second triangle. So there are 2 triangles for that answer. Pause if you need to. Make sure you're writing down some questions too, if needed. Let's go on to C. All right, once again, set myself up first. A is 58 degrees, side A is 4.5, side B is 5, and that's all I got. So this time I'm going to start by solving for angle B. I know that angle A and side A are across from each other. So then I have angle B over side B. Oops, and I forgot to even write it in. Side B is 5. All right, let's cross multiply. 5 times sine of 58 divided by 4.5. Sine inverse both sides to get B by itself, and it's 70.4 for angle B. Now I just want to tell you that this time angle B was the first angle I found. You always test to see if there's a second triangle using the first angle that was found. So I'm going to use that angle when I test for a second triangle in just a minute. But let's find C first. Angle C is 180 subtract my angle given, subtract 70.4. Angle C is approximately 51.6 degrees then. And I'm going to find side C next. So sine of 51.6 divided by side C equals sine of 58 divided by 4.5. Go ahead and cross multiply and solve, and you should get approximately 4.2. Hopefully you're able to write a little smaller so you have more space than I do here. Okay, so again, I check for my second triangle with the first angle I found. So I want to find what angle here has a reference angle of 70.4. So I will do 180 subtract 70.4 to figure that out, and it's 109.6 degrees. So the question is, could potentially be 109.6 degrees also. So let's test it. Angle A was 58. That was given, so I know for sure that's true. Will angle C be a positive number is the question. If it's negative, there's no second triangle. If it's positive, there is. And it is, because it's 12.4 degrees. All right. So I was able to find angle C, so now I'm going to take this setup up here, and I am going to use angle 12.4 instead of 51.6. Everything else stays the same. And you should end up with approximately 1.1 for side C, and there are 2 triangles. I have two examples here for you to try on your own, example D and example E. One of them has only 1 triangle and one of them has 2 triangles. So go ahead and give them a try. When you unpause, I'll have the answers showing, and you can ask me questions about it next time you see me if you're not sure what happened. All right, here's the answer to D. The first triangle is angle C is 33.5, angle A is 67.5, and A is 15.1. There is no second triangle for example D. For example E, there are 2 triangles, and here they are. Again, write that down. Let me know what questions you have. Thanks for listening. Great to have you as an audience.